She scoped up me a month ago. So everything. Money.
If you're thinking about going to Colombia, you might want to stay away from the dating apps because what happened to this man is wild. So this American guy traveled to Medellin, went on Bumble to meet women and met her. They end up going on a date one night, then he brings her back to his place and she spiked his drink. This man completely knocks out and she steals all his money, his phone, and his computer. He then eventually wakes up 20 hours later in his hotel and then he goes to police and he reports what happened to him. Police then tell him that he's so lucky to be alive because about 40 Americans have been killed recently from this. So fast forward, a month goes by. And this man in this video is out in the city and bumps into the same woman that almost took his life. That's where you see in the video, he's chasing her and she's trying to run away. I was looking into other stories very similar to this one, and last year, this 50-year-old man from Minnesota was talking to a woman online who lived in Colombia. He then flew into Medellin to meet her, and only a few weeks into his trip, he calls his brother and asks that he send him $2,000. His brother transfers the money and then never hears of him again. Police then found this man's body dumped in a wooded area. It turns out that he was kidnapped and held at gunpoint for the $2,000 ransom. And this is the thing, a lot of these male tourists don't seem to be scared because they think that they're meeting only women, but when, you know, they're drugged and brought to the hotel, there's sometimes men there waiting for them. And let's just be clear, this isn't only happening in Colombia, it's happening in other foreign countries as well.
This is why you should never drink booba. In 2019, a 19-year-old girl ordered booba in China with her brother. While her and her brother were on their way to a friend's house, she began to sip her booba. While drinking her milk tea, she found it quite difficult to suck up some of the pearls, so she sucked harder. This caused 3 booba pearls to get lodged into her throat and clog her trachea. While choking on the booba pearls, her brother called 911 and an ambulance showed up to take her to the hospital. And what happened next is so shocking you won't believe it. But first, I just found a way you can erase anything or anyone from your photos. It's super easy. Just press the download button on my profile and try it. The doctors attempted CPR, but after multiple attempts, she sadly died.
The most terrifying weapon in the Middle Ages may have been a giant mirror. So this is the famous Greek inventor Archimedes, and he's rumored to be behind the most lethal weapon ever constructed during the Middle Ages. The weapon, which was known as the Archimedes death ray, were several giant mirrors that reflected the sunlight onto Roman ships and burnt them into the water. This was rumored to have occurred in the siege of Syracuse in 200 BC, and although this weapon technically could have existed, the validity of this weapon is still up for debate amongst historians today.
And has an 80-minute wait. And it's starting in the atrium.
You want to be the worst person you know? Text goodnight to somebody that you haven't spoken to in years. Slowly move somebody else's drink closer and closer to the edge of the table and just like wait to see if they notice or bump into it. Next time somebody shows you a picture of their partner, say, hey, can you send me that? And then they do like the phone touch thing. Say, you look tired next time somebody says hello. Bring up calories next time somebody's eating. Ask questions, but then interrupt the answer. Better yet, honestly, get on your phone or walk away. Say something like, I don't care either way, and then argue anyway. Somebody says something weird to you, just say, I'll remember that, like it's a threat. Start telling a story and then like midway through be like, you know what, this isn't actually that interesting, and then stop completely. Next time somebody's doing something kind of embarrassing, a little stressful, like reading out loud maybe, or parallel parking, just start recording them. Next time somebody kisses you, just spit, get it out.
This is where I draw the line. These are not the same people. Ghislaine has been locked up for only 6 years. So why is it that in this new video from prison, does she look like she aged 15 years? She also does not sound the same. This is a video of her 3 years ago during an interview in prison, and this is how she looks and sounds now.
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Her nose is different, her eyes are different, and her voice is definitely different. And then all of a sudden, they want to release these videos of Ghislaine in prison, going about her day, just to convince the public that that's her. I'm already prepared for some of you to be calling me a conspiracy theorist, But listen, if anyone else committed the same crimes she did, they would not be transferred into a low security prison camp and be given all the perks like food delivery to her cell, private rooms to watch TV, and playing with dogs. Also, in case you didn't know, the prison has prohibited other inmates and threatened them with solitary confinement if they spoke about Ghislaine, complained about her perks, or mentioned anything about her to anyone outside the prison.
What does plutonium taste like? This man found out. Los Alamos, 1944. Donald Mastick was working in a high-security lab helping to develop the atomic bomb. Then an accident would change his life forever. Picking up a glass container, it exploded and covered him in an acidic liquid. That container held a microscopic amount of plutonium. Noticing the acidic taste that filled his mouth, Donald knew he was in deep trouble. Even 30 years later, trace amounts of plutonium was still detectable in Donald, but he lived until he was 87.
Is Houska Castle really a portal to hell? The people who built it weren't trying to keep something out. They were trying to keep something in. Most castles were built to defend from outsiders, but Houska Castle in the Czech Republic was built in the middle of nowhere. There's not a water source, there's not strategic value, no easy access, yet it was heavily protected against attack. And people believe this is because it was built on top of a massive hole in the ground. A bottomless pit that locals believed led straight to hell. And the goal wasn't to protect the land, it was to trap whatever was inside. When the hole was first discovered, prisoners were offered pardons if they agreed to be lowered inside. The first volunteer lasted seconds before screaming to be pulled out. And the really creepy thing is that when they got him up, he was reportedly aged beyond recognition. His hair had turned white, he was rambling about creatures with bat-like wings crawling up the walls, and that's when people started to refer to it as the gateway to hell. Even creepier is that the castle's chapel is built directly over that hole, almost like it's a seal. And the windows are fake, it's just stone painted to look like windows. There was never any intention of anyone actually living here. It was a containment zone, not a home. Visitors over the years have reported seeing black figures walking the walls, hearing screams from the pit below, and seeing winged creatures flying overhead. There have also been reports of animal mutilations nearby, but no signs of predators. Honestly, I think they were trying to contain something that they didn't understand. And what creeps me out the most is that this pit is still there. Houska Castle is literally open to visitors. Would you stand over the gateway to hell and look down? I just posted a new video going through a serial killer victim's diary. People were freaking out about the Passengers teaser, but have you seen the 6 o'clock man? They have a cryptic tagline that says they buried him at 6 and then they ate the ashes. The film is still being developed. I just stumbled upon this on my For You page. I think that by the looks of this, he's luring all these people into his home, and they don't see him as this dark, scary, shadowy figure. They see him as the guy sitting at the head of the table. They think they're going to a dinner party at 6 o'clock, the 6 o'clock man, but they're actually getting a little more than they bargained for. Maybe he's like stealing their souls. I don't know what the reasoning is. I'm literally just making a guess from this clip. As you look through the creator's account, you can see a lot of these videos are definitely AI, but maybe these are concepts that they want to then make real. You know what I mean? And using AI is like a quick way to just show you the idea, and then they can go in and get funding and shoot it, which I guess is what they're doing right now. There's really not a lot of information out there yet, but I'm so intrigued. Let me know your guesses. Also, hi, I'm Grace. Can I be your horror girly?
Somebody made an exorcism simulator and it's very dark. Let's talk about one of the creepiest religious horror games I have ever played, Ritus Exorcismus. In this game, we play as a brand new exorcist. It's our job to go to the surrounding towns and free the villagers from possession. Every possession is different and very stressful. We use different tools like holy water or crosses based on which symptoms are present. We then have to figure out which demon is inside of the individual and then bring them to the surface. At any time during the possession, you have a book you can reference. It tells you how to treat the symptoms and how to identify the demons. Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub, Mammon, these are all demons that you can encounter during a possession. As you go to the different towns though, you start to figure out that it's not just the people who are possessed. The corruption is spreading to animals, insects, plants. What is going on? And at night when we try to sleep, we keep having these disturbing visions. The demons are getting stronger and they're speaking to us every day now. And the possessions, they're getting far worse. There is something unspeakably evil going on here. I have a full playthrough of the game on my channel if you're interested. This game is very dark but surprisingly fun to play.
This is why you should never put off going to the dentist. Patrick Lawler tried everything to get rid of his toothache. He tried painkillers, ice cream, but nothing seemed to help. The pain became excruciating, so he finally visited the dentist. The X-ray would reveal the source of the pain, but also cause him to break down in tears. Because unknown to Patrick, he had a 4-inch nail embedded in his skull. The 23-year-old construction worker, whilst using a nail gun, had accidentally fired the nail into his mouth. After a successful 4-hour operation, the surgeons found that the nail had plunged 1.5 inches directly into his brain. Even his doctors said, if you're going to have a nail on the brain, then that's where you want it to be. He's the luckiest guy ever.
You had one job and still failed. This sign says, do not touch bread with hands, please use tongue. Don't threaten me with a good time. This person asked for 1 pepperoni pizza and yup, they got 1 pepperoni pizza. This sign says no face, no entry. What? This puzzle says this is a fox. Have I been lied to my entire life? Before I show you the best one, if you want to erase children or honestly anything from your photos, try this. Just press the button on my profile and have fun. And this person found a full potato in their bag of fries. Wow.
This is a serial killer you haven't heard of that has more victims than Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and Jeffrey Dahmer combined. The Sunday morning slasher. Carl Eugene Watts targeted mostly young, attractive women walking alone in the dark. He would stab, slash, strangle, and drown them. Watts told a psychiatrist that they had evil eyes, and it wasn't enough to murder these women, he had to kill their spirits too, by burning personal items or tossing them in a sewer. His first victim was 19-year-old Gloria Steele, a mother and college student who was stabbed 33 times in her apartment. Michigan authorities knew he was responsible for dozens of murders, but they never had enough evidence to convict him. In 1982, Watts fled to Texas and resumed his murders, killing at least 12 more, including the youngest victim, 14-year-old Emily Lacroix. Now let's get to the moment he was finally caught. On May 23, 1982, Carl Watts choked Lori Lister until she was unconscious, then dragged her up the apartment steps. He used her keys to open the door and came face to face with Lori's roommate, Melinda Aguilar. Melinda was choked by Carl Watts as well, but this time she pretended to black out. He bound her hands behind her back and put her in a separate bedroom, while he filled up a bathtub where he planned to drown Lori Lister. With her hands still bound behind her back, Melinda quietly locked the bedroom door and proceeded to jump off a second-story balcony, where she yelled at a woman who was drinking coffee outside to call police. Unfortunately, Texas prosecutors offered immunity to Watts for the 13 murders he confessed to, in exchange for a 60-year sentence. Oddly enough, he was almost released from prison in 2006, but Michigan authorities were able to convict him of 2 murders before that could happen, and he died in prison in 2007 from prostate cancer.
This is a horror game that plays like Slender, but it's even more terrifying. Let's talk about a horror game called Atonement. Full playthrough on my channel right now. Just like Slender, the game takes place in a dark forest with a bunch of different landmarks. In this forest, we have to find 6 or 7 keys to unlock a door. Of course though, just like Slender, there's something in the woods after you. Except this thing works a lot differently. The flashlight will stop it in its tracks, but if you shine it at him for too long, he charges you. Also, every key we pick up, just like the pages, makes him more aggressive. If you pay attention to the landmarks in the item descriptions, it's clear that there's a story here. And the more you play, the more you uncover what's actually going on. Yes, this one is scary, but it's also very difficult, so keep that in mind.
The greatest unsolved mysteries of history.
Here's a girl dinner horror movie that you probably shouldn't watch while eating. This film is called Dumplings, and it's considered one of the most disturbing food-related horror movies ever made. This film follows a very wealthy woman named Miss Lee who's becoming very insecure about her aging. She's worried that as she gets older, her husband will lose interest in her and leave her for a younger woman. Desperate to stay youthful, she seeks out this mysterious woman named Aunt May, and she makes dumplings said to make you young and beautiful again. Women secretly visit Aunt May's small apartment from all over the city hoping to try them. At first, Miss Lee is hesitant, but she ends up trying one of these dumplings, and almost immediately she notices that her skin is starting to look smoother, healthier, and younger. Soon she becomes obsessed with eating these dumplings, and the more that she eats, the more that she feels that she's reversing the aging process. One day, Miss Lee accidentally discovers what Aunt May is actually putting into these dumplings. And according to Aunt May, the fresher the ingredient, the stronger the result. Now, Miss Lee has to make a disturbing decision. Does she stop eating these dumplings knowing what's inside of them, or does she continue to be young forever? Once you find out what the secret ingredient is, you may never want to eat dumplings ever again.
The Bachelorette was just cancelled after Taylor Frankie Paul threw a stool at her ex. So ABC just pulled The Bachelorette from airing, even though it just started. Now it was cancelled because a video of the main girl Taylor just resurfaced of her throwing a stool at her ex Dakota. Now her and Dakota had been in this whole DV dispute. They're making all these claims against each other, but it looks like Taylor was the one doing the DV.
Animals with the most unserious names. Slippery dick fish. Cock of the rock.
Dick deck.
Spiny lumpsucker.
Here's all the winners from the 2026 Oscars. So to start, they gave out the Oscar for the Best Supporting Actress, which went to Amy Madigan for Weapons. Then the Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film was won by K-pop Demon Hunters. Low-key, there was no competition, that was always gonna win. Best Animated Short Film was won by The Girl Who Cried Pearls. Then Frankenstein went on to win 2 Oscars for Best Costume Design and Best Makeup and Hairstyling. And they introduced a new Oscar for Best Casting, which went to one battle after another. Then the Oscar for Best Live-Action Short Film resulted in a tie. The first short film was called The Singers, and the second was called Two People Exchanging Saliva. A very interesting name, if you ask me. Then for Best Supporting Actor, Sean Penn won, and they were low-key kind of shady towards him because he was not at the event, and they literally just said that he did not want to be there. Now, one battle after another won back-to-back Oscars because they also won Best Adapted Screenplay, but the Best Original Screenplay was won by Sinners. Then Frankenstein went on to win Best Production Design, which I couldn't agree more with. The production design of that movie is immaculate. The Oscar for Best Visual Effects was won by Avatar: Fire and Ash. The Best Documentary Short went to All the Empty Rooms, and the Best Documentary Feature Film went to Mr. Nobody Against Putin. The Best Original Score was won by Sinners, which is very deserved in my opinion. And the Oscar for Achievement in Sound went to F1. The Oscar for Best Film Editing was won by one battle after another. Best Cinematography was won by Sinners. Best International Feature Film was won by Sentimental Value. The Oscar for Best Original Song was won by K-pop Demon Hunters for the song Golden. It was actually the first K-pop song ever to win this award. Best Directing was won by one battle after another, low-key winning everything. And the most important of the awards of the night start now. Best Lead Actor was won by Michael B. Jordan for Sinners. Best Lead Actress was won by Jessie Buckley for Hamnet. And the Oscar for Best Picture was won by one battle after another.
This teacher ended up marrying her second grade student. Mary Kay Letourneau was born on January 30th of 1962, and she was characterized as someone who was bright, pretty, and charming. She was married to her husband Steve, and together they had 4 children together, and they were all living in Washington. In 1989, Mary Kay started working at Buren's Shorewood Elementary School, and she had this big list of students that wanted to be in her class, and parents loved her because apparently she was an amazing teacher. In the fall of 1991, a boy named Billy Falau entered Mary Kay's classroom as he was starting 2nd grade. As soon as Villy stepped into Mary Kay's classroom, she was infatuated with this second grader, and she continued to mentor him even after he had left her classroom. In 1996, Mary Kay started teaching the 6th grade, and this is when Villy was entering the 6th grade, and because of this student-teacher relationship started to become inappropriate. At the time, Mary Kay was going through some personal things, and she started to focus more of her energy on 12-year-old Villy. Villy often stayed late in the classroom with her. She would give him money for dinner. She would invite him over to spend the night since her children were around the same age as him, and there was even one time he went on vacation with her family. This all started as flirting and then escalated to SA in June of 1996. By the time Villy entered the 7th grade, Mary Kay was pregnant with his child. In February of 1997, Steve found letters between Mary Kay and Villy, and their relationship came to an end. Steve confided in a family member about what was going on, so the elementary school was notified as well as CPS. Mary Kay, who was pregnant with Villy's child, was reported to police, detained, and charged. Mary Kay tried to say that their relationship was romantic and consensual, but because of Villy's age, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but they ended up letting her get out after 80 days as long as she didn't speak to Villy again. But of course, that was not going to stop her, and they were found again in February of 1998. Since Mary Kay did break her parole, she was ordered to do her whole prison term. But surprise, surprise, Mary Kay was pregnant once again with Villy's second child, and she gave birth to their daughter in October of 1998. While Mary Kay was finishing her sentence, Villy's mother took custody of their 2 children, and Mary Kay and her husband ended up getting a divorce, and he moved their 4 children to Alaska. In August of 2004, Mary Kay was allowed to leave prison, and at this time, Villy was around 21 years old, and they got engaged. Ended up finding a home in Seattle, Washington with their children, and at one point they were hosting a series called Hot for Teacher Nights at a nightclub since Villy was a DJ. In May of 2017, Villy filed for legal separation. On July 7th of 2020, Mary Kay passed away from cancer, and Villy was by her side the entire time. Eventually, Villy did come forward and state that he was manipulated and groomed by Mary Kay, and that he would not be able to look at a 13-year-old the same way she did because that's just not in his brain.